My guest today is Richard Hobday. He is an entrepreneur, film producer, and actor. His entrepreneurship spans successful businesses across property development, sport, and education. As an actor, Richie has appeared in many TV, feature films on Netflix and Amazon, and has recently completed a number of international Bollywood films. He believes everyone in life can act, and we all take on the role of a character in life. He has found acting to be a successful way of tackling and dealing with deep personal matters. We wear masks which hide the true us and help portray different images, but what lies behind the mask? Often trauma, sadness, and darkness. Richie is in the process of removing his own mask and raising awareness of childhood sexual abuse and the impact this has in adulthood, particularly amongst middle-aged males. So welcome, Richie, to the show. Lovely to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thanks, Madeleine. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. So because the show is called Unbroken, the first question I ask every guest is, what does that word unbroken mean to you?
I think, for me, unbroken means overcoming major or multiple personal traumas or events in your life that perhaps could have broken you. And you come out the other end still fighting, still positive, still here, actually, which I think for many people is a success. So for me, unbroken is really tackling and overcoming some major traumas in people's lives, really.
Yeah.
And it could be anything. Obviously, I've got personal things that I've overcome, but for anyone, it could be social, family, business, mental health, anything around those areas that I think would break some people. And fortunately, a majority of people do come through it unbroken. And then I got to a point in my life that I had other personal matters going on, including a divorce, including associated relationship problems with my family and children. And it kind of just brought everything to the surface. So all my multiple kind of issues that I hadn't addressed popped to the surface. I mean, I think we're all very adept at putting things away in a box, particularly perhaps men in particular don't express how they're feeling. There's this kind of thing that you've got to be the tough, resilient man and not admit to any weaknesses or any negative things that happen to you. So it was always there. I was the victim of some sexual abuse by a male teacher. That happened when I was around 13, went on for a couple of years. And I'd never spoken to anyone about it until in my 40s when I got divorced. I was becoming overcome with grief, overcome with pain, not just to do with the divorce, but other stuff that was coming out. And then it's still taken me probably another 5 or 6 years to actually speak publicly about it. I did have some therapy where obviously on a private one-to-one basis it's easier to talk about, but very few people know. In fact, my current wife is probably the only person who knows what happened to me. So part of the process of why I want to talk out now is to begin healing for myself, because I think reading up on lots of experiences until you, I guess, forgive, come to terms with it, and don't blame yourself, it's very hard to heal. To be fair to all the people around me who give me support and who I love, because they didn't understand why, I would just, I'd curl up in a ball, I'd be like a kind of sobbing wreck, really. And yes, of course, divorce is painful, not seeing my kids is painful, but I don't think they could understand why. I just had this real pain that they wouldn't understand. So I've tried to address it by being honest and open about what happened so that other people around me can understand why. Perhaps it's triggered by, particularly drinking, which I know a number of people hide behind, either drugs or alcohol or other kind of addictions. So it kind of raised, it kept bubbling to the surface more often than it used to. So I think that's why my time is now, as it were.
And when you found yourself caught in these spaces of trauma, because that's really what it is when you're
Yeah.
curled up in a little fetal position, were you aware of what was going on? Were the memories coming back to you, or you just felt utter pain and
No, it
despair?
was just real pain that is really hard to describe. Unless obviously people have been through it. I've had pain where my parents died, other pain which is physical pain from injuries and things, but just this feeling of absolute torment and torture that my body was just in pain, really.
You're right. I mean, it's interesting that the footballers speaking out have given you courage, but you are now going to give other people courage, because I do believe that courage is contagious. And when they
Yeah.
hear, we can hear that it's tricky for you to speak out. You know, it's going to
Mm.
be, but they'll think if you can do it, well, yeah, I can do it as well.
Yeah. And I think, the intro that you did about masks and acting, I think obviously because that's partly my profession among other things, but I do believe there's lots and lots of people out there with a public mask that we don't know what's behind it.
Hmm.
And if we could start to get more people to be the real person and not the pretend people that they need to be in society to either fit in or to because they haven't tackled it. The world's got to be a better place and a healthier place for people mentally and their well-being. Right? It does seem to be a struggle when perhaps if I talk to somebody close to me that I love, because I still have this feeling that I've let them down or I've let myself down. And
And how have you let them down? In what way?
I think by well, if I go back to immediate family, it's probably a feeling that I wasn't strong enough to deal with it because that's the adult me thinking I should be stronger,
And
not the
now, if you
child
really were
me.
to go backwards in time, what could you have done differently?
I I don't think I could have done anything, no. And I think that's a big kind of thing that you need to be aware of, really.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, I can see that now. The more you talk about it, um, and therapy certainly helped identify the adult me and the child me and differentiating between the two. I guess it's just making sure when I talk to people, sometimes they don't have that same level of understanding that we do because we've been through some therapy and a bit more understanding of the process. So um, yeah, I think that's the main challenge for me is to talk to people without feeling that feeling of shame again, really.
I
Um,
kind of feel like I want to say that you need to have some more compassion for your younger self. You know, it wasn't
yes,
their responsibility to make everybody feel okay about what happened to you. That's what I get a sense of what you're trying to say. You
I
don't want
think
to cause them hurt, or you don't want to cause them any discomfort by hearing what happened. And
yeah,
I totally get that as well.
yeah. I think obviously maybe because my parents died, it gave me a chance to look at it and address it as well. Because I don't think I would have wanted them to know what had happened to me,
So they never knew
particularly.
before they
No,
passed
they never
away.
knew.
Yeah.
No, and maybe that was a bit of a trigger point for me trying to address it and tackle it. I know death is often a trigger point for people to deal with stuff or things come up, and particularly from your childhood. But I think I'd have found it really difficult talking to them about it
Mhm.
because I don't want to shift blame onto them because I think my dad would feel terrible about putting me in that situation. So maybe the fact that they're no longer with us has made it easy for me to talk about it publicly.
So good at giving other people advice, because we still will say, yeah, don't blame yourself, it's not your fault. And yet sometimes we still fall into, oh, but if I had have just done this and if I had have just said that, and then, but yeah, don't blame yourself is 100%
Yeah.
the perfect way to end this interview. I hope you take that on board and really, really hear that, and everyone else that's listening as well. So, Richie, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show and taking that step to share your story and bring it to the light. It is really needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Madeleine, for having me, and hopefully you'll see a lot more of me in other ways as well.
I hope so.
I hope
Thanks
I
again.
can. Thanks for your time. Thank you.